The Unicornis Manuscripts, a live Periscope reading by Fairy Princess Lolly.
Chapter 3. On an Ancient Gospel of the Unicorn, Friday of May the 14th. Today, while working in the kitchen garden, Unicornis appeared. After pleasantries, he inquired, "So, how goes the history of the unicorn?" Then he motioned me to his chambers, where he said he had something in safekeeping to show me. "Long ago, an artist not unlike yourself passed this way," he began, when we had sat ourselves, and made the same resolve. He was a monk from a distant abbey and skilled in the arts of illumination. It was generations past before my service. The fellow came to meet the blessed beast, and, deeply moved, he set out to contrive a gospel from his learnings. He began a wonderful title page, filled with embellishment in the style he knew. But when he drew nearer still to the friend, he put down pen and parchment, for words failed him, and his gospel went unwrit. 12 years passed, as the story goes, until our pilgrim's cup was filled, then filled again. So at last, before departing, he resolved to complete his treatise, as you shall see. Unicornis rose and unwrapped a single lambskin parchment, stiff with years. Long he had pondered what to say, and in the end it came. But see for yourself. Here is his gospel. I looked in bewilderment. The good brother had begun his page with delicate interlacings in the style of ancient Celts, and wonderfully done. But the labor was finished with a simple spiral line traced round about where text instead should be. "Is there more?" I asked. "No more." The old man regarded me with a mischievous twinkle, as if waiting for me to produce some penetrating compliment. I stared at the document, perplexed. "Here," he said, "I think you had better have the thing, for now you have taken on the work, and it ought to be in your keeping." I hope this was his blessing. I took the pretty page and counted it first among my treasures. The Unicornis Manuscripts, Chapter 3. On the History and Truth of the Unicorn. In thee it is concealed a strange and terrible mystery. I, Magnalucius, born in the village of Anciana in the year 1457, do set forth this work in my own hand and attest to its veracity. By God's grace, I have not lacked education, having first been trained in the art of drawing. But in its inks and pigments I found only pride and emptiness. So then I turned to books of natural philosophy and alchemy, even to the sacred Kabbalah of the Hebrews. The most profound teachings of the Gnostic brethren I pursued in the cities and monasteries of Egypt. And in all these studies I learned hidden secrets, many and great. Yet all I learned in those years was a shadow in the light of the unicorn, whose coming set the keystone to all my knowledge. All before had been first fruits, now harvest abounding. Now this work pays no heed to the vain fancies and foolish imaginings of anyone, though he may have acquired the weight of hallowed tradition. As says St. Columban, flower of the cloisters of Ireland, manifestly ancient is error, but the truly ancient is truth. If common lore asserted by the wise and accepted by the majority is here contradicted, let the reader be satisfied that these words and pictures are witness to pure and simple experience, and judge the truth for himself. O reader, if thou art neither scribe nor sacrificer, cast not thy gaze upon this book, for it contains secret teachings useful only to the few and troubling to the many. And if thou seekest only mere amusement, read no further. But if thou art an earnest pilgrim on the path of life, then open, read, and ponder. These words and pictures witness. Mind on mind in wordless thought, these things the unicorn made known to me. The creature's true origins lie in the depths of time, in that beginningless beginning when all was emptiness and waste, darkness and mist. Then moved the Holy One to sunder the dark from the bright. So were established concord and balance, with darkness driven to the fringes, and the abode of light in the middle point of all. But darkness, once given a situation to compass for itself, grew weighty beyond accounting, intruding among all things and drawing them toward itself according to their weights and inclinations. Therefore was the balance made to tremble, and from that trembling arose a resonance, an awesome sound that circled the vast emptiness, chanting mightily. The Holy One modulated that sound to make of it a chord of great sweetness, and breathed into it intelligence, so that it might become a spirit of harmony and guidance unto every corner of the void. This was the powerful spirit called Galgalim, whirling itself through uncounted ages while ever spiraling around the central light, and while some things still fell into darkness. Yet Galgalim guided others on a more rarefied path toward the shores of light. In such a way was balance achieved once more. Then the Holy One wished for a panel on which to display his greater art, and between the shores of light and the walls of darkness, he hung and balanced the earth. Its naked mountains he raised in fire, and scattered them with shining gems that still reflect those flames. Then the Holy One addressed the spirit of guidance, which is Galgalim, saying, "Out of the hidden gulfs I made thee, free and by form unbounded. Wilt thou accept shape upon earth, that thou mayst supply a service even greater?" The first unicorn. Wrapped in a cloud came he, by a bright whirlwind borne along. He descended gently from the heavens to the infant fields of earth, even before the fires of its forming were yet subdued. Thus did the unicorn possess the brightness of light, that he might drive all darkness and obscurity from him. He was called Asalam, of unicorns the firstborn, a creature fearfully wrought and wonderful to behold, bearing a horn of spiral light that is the sign of Galgalim, the guide. Of the garden of the unicorn. Now with his horn, Asalam struck barren rock, piercing it into great depth, and drew forth a gushing spring of life. Wherever those waters flowed, fires were quenched, and the earth was made fertile with a multitude of fruitful things. Great trees rose up and blossomed, and under their shade came beasts both wild and tame. All this was by intent of the Holy One, and the unicorn was the instrument of his will. In such a way was formed the garden of the unicorn, called Shamagim, which means place where there is water. The Holy One then addressed the firstborn, saying, Asalam, of all my creations thou alone shalt ever recall thy making and dwell in remembrance unbroken of the light, to be its guide and guardian. But never to the light shalt thou return until the final hour of the end of time. And the unicorn dwelt in his garden, and went walking abroad with great wonder. Thus did the unicorn possess the brightness of the light. On the making of man. When the Holy One wished to make himself known, ever as all things were known to him, into himself withdrawing from earth and air, water and fire, his sacred breath compounded man, who was strong and fair, being the crown of all creation. Looking upon man, the unicorn marveled, and became suddenly modest and shy. And because Asalam had no part in man's making, the unicorn loved man more and bowed before him as a servant. Thus was the unicorn the first beast that man beheld, and the first to which he gave a name. From that time to this, the fates of these two races have been bound together, for while the unicorn leads toward the light, only man may pass therein. And this was the beginning of the first age. The Book of Nemesis. In the long bright years of the first age, man and unicorn dwelt together, and both races grew in stature of body and mind. But other beings had been spawned in darkness, and in darkness grew strong. The spawnings of the dragons. On that very day, when the unicorn drew forth from the barren rock a gushing spring of life, the seeds of doom were sown as well. For even as those shining waters spread their fertile moisture, they poured into unlightened fissures and trickled down to secret, burning caverns that wound among the mountain's roots. There, in those abysmal chambers, the sacred water's life-bestowing charge was first expended in raising up a living thing. And thus in fire and in darkness was the dragon born. Her nature bears everlasting testimony to that uneasy birth, and ever after no other creature has possessed the same measure of strength and cunning. Now the first dragon was Yaldabaoth, though she is called Tiamat as well, and many other names besides. She was fearsomely wrought, with darting, lidless eyes, and the first sight caught in her unblinking gaze was her own image, reflected in the dark waters. She worshipped the sight, and a secret lust for that selfsame image has consumed her heart for all time since. The Yaldabaoth grew great and spawned others like herself, Nagamat and Kalyat and Orcus and Tarask and Serpens and many more besides. Now while dragons are of many sizes and shapes, all are swift and sharp of intellect and thirst after knowledge. While the unicorn seeks to divine the secrets of creation that he may more perfectly know the Creator, the dragon desires the same, that it may gain dominion over all the world, and thereby conquer death. Now the dragon fiercely hates the unicorn for his primacy, because it is not self-created, but owes to him its being. And so has ever been the bane of the unicorn, the dragon's fixed intent being to devour him, that it may no longer be an aftercomer, but the oldest of all things. Now the unicorn oversees all dominions of this world, so in shadows and in fading light he finally must confront the worm. No creature exceeds the unicorn in quickness or in courage, but vast and subtle is the knowledge of the dragon. It can mold its mind to his and lure him into the mazes of its thought, where the unicorn tarries, judging that all such intelligence cannot be utterly without redemption. And so, by imperceptible degrees, is he led into a debate unending, while the dragon drains him of his strength and light. In those sunless halls his doom approaches, and only when he treads paths of thought that utterly violate his nature does he realize how grim his plight has become. Then must the unicorn traverse a narrow path. On the one side waits hatred, on the other cold despair. Either will prove his defeat, for to succumb to hate would be to grasp his enemy's own device and perish in its fire. Yet if he flees, despairing and depleted, then he will be overtaken, be undone, and perish. Meshed in confusion, the unicorn knows for the first time the cold touch of the fear suffered by mortal men, the only fear that he shall ever know. But if he be steadfast, victory may still be claimed. With great sagacity, with highest love, he must awaken from a dream and, without hesitation, pierce the dragon with his spiral horn.